Across the country, childcare prices are breaking the bank. Demand is high while supply for workers and centers remains low. Depending on where you live, this price tag can look a little different. For example, in large American cities like New York, Chicago, and LA, it's higher. If you need weekday care for your toddler, it would set you back about $14,000 a year, according to the National Database of Childcare Prices, an initiative overseen by the U.S. Department of Labor. Even if you shift outwards to a medium-sized suburb or small city, the price isn't much lower. Tuition's around $10,000 a year, and that's just per child. One working mom who's all too familiar with this high cost shares her story.
I know children are expensive overall because that's clothes and food and all that, but childcare, it was in the back of my mind until it wasn't. And now it's like all consuming. I cannot provide her things in life if I don't go to work. And if she doesn't have somewhere to go, then I can't provide her things in life because I can't go to work because she'll be home with me. So it's just like that's the top bill that I have to pay.
That's Christina Kuhn, a mom living in Michigan who pays for her 3-year-old daughter to attend a childcare center. Kuhn pays $200 a week for a program that spans Monday through Thursday, 8 hours per day. In order to make ends meet, she works 2 jobs but still feels stressed out about how tight money is.
When I get paid, the first thing I do is pay her tuition so that I can make sure that I can have my grocery money, my bill money. I have to make sure that that gets paid first before I do anything else. And that stresses me out a little bit because it's like, what would I do if, like, okay, I pay that and then it's like, now my grocery money is subtracted or this money, or I can't put her in things outside of the home because I have to make sure her tuition pays. It's just sad that that's like the first bill that I have to think of. It's just very stressful.
And Kuhn's not the only one. Across America, millions are struggling. Instead of enjoying this new role as a parent and the growth of their little one, many feel chronically worried about if they'll have enough to cover rent, groceries, and other basics.
It's not uncommon for families to have to look through 20 or 30 childcare programs, either a center or a family childcare program, or perhaps even trying to find someone who does family friend and neighbor care before they find an arrangement. And we've also heard stories from the families that sort of 2 different ways of approaching of sometimes having to take care that they really didn't feel comfortable leaving their child in, or maybe it wasn't like an outright perception of that there was a problem, but just sort of an uneasy feeling. We've also talked to parents who have found a place in a high quality program that provided what they wanted for their children, but was really expensive, and then making up for it by turning down the thermostat in the winter or serving less nutritious food that was cheaper. So you have families making all of these really difficult choices.
That's Patricia Cole, Senior Director of Federal Policy at 0 to 3, a national nonprofit working to better support families and caregivers of toddlers and infants. Cole says the child care crisis isn't new, but has grown worse over time.
When you have a 2-parent family or 2-income family, where it can range from anywhere from 7.3% of your total income of the median income in a state to almost 17%. But for when you have a single parent or you have a single earner, it can range from a minimum of 26.3%. So that's over a quarter of your income right there. And the highest state is 79.4% of your income if you were to pay for sort of the average quality care program.
And childcare isn't just important for working parents, but it's also vital to children. Especially for toddlers and preschoolers, this period is critical to fostering key developmental and social skills. Kuhn says that in her experience, high-quality childcare is marked at a premium price that's out of reach for the average person.
I didn't want to sound snooty, but at the same time, I'm like, I need quality for my daughter, but I also need to be able to feed her when I get her and put diapers on her. And sometimes I do worry now that I'm sacrificing quality for the cheaper route, but I could not think to afford anything else. I work 2 jobs to afford everything, and I still feel like I'm failing.
Among first world countries, the U.S. is an exception in this issue. Most developed nations help parents out with the cost of center-based or in-home care for children. Others provide longer parental leave so adults don't have to worry about finding and paying for this service early on. In 2021, Germany spent an average of about $18,000 per toddler. Compare this to the U.S., which shelled out around $500, according to the Hamilton Project, an initiative run by the nonprofit nonpartisan Brookings Institution. In the short term, Cole says that Congress must pass an extension on the Childcare Stabilization Act, which would give an additional $16 billion in funding over the next 5 years. If this doesn't happen, parents may face even more hardships.
Programs will have to raise their prices. For families who are already struggling, that means that some families will be forced to walk away entirely, which only makes it harder for providers to stay in business and for parents to work. It means a lot of more women may have to drop out of the workforce, at least for a time, which has an economic impact, both on their families and their own careers, but also for the economy as a whole. And more employees in the childcare system will leave for better paying and more stable jobs. So it results in a kind of a vicious cycle, which spirals toward higher prices and really a worse system of care.
One effect experts are already seeing is that more adults are delaying children, having less, or are choosing to not have kids at all. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that the nationwide birth rate from 2007 to 2022 dropped by 23%. While there are many factors that funnel into this number, one big reason is high cost.
I think unquestionably, anecdotally, you hear more prospective parents saying they're not going to have children. It's too hard to find childcare. There isn't paid family and medical leave. It's really hard to have a family in this country. And sometimes we think about it as everybody wants to sustain our population, but once someone has a baby, it's like the nation sort of stands on the sideline and wishes them the best.
Cole says something needs to change. It starts with boosting funding, but also in the long term, there must be an overhaul of how families are supported by the government.
When Congress is thinking about policies, or state legislatures are thinking about policies, that they should think about what the impact is on babies and development and really try to understand that. And maybe some of those programs would rise to a higher priority.
Kuhn says it feels like she's almost being punished for having her daughter and trying to ensure that she gets a good start.
Why do I have to work this hard to make sure that the future of this country has a great start to education and to care? I have to sacrifice work. I have to sacrifice time. I have to sacrifice all these things for you guys to tell me you can't sacrifice those things. You have to work because you can't afford to stay home. You have to have a good education for your child, but you have to afford it, but you can't afford it because your salary doesn't allow you to afford it. And it's just like, you feel like all these orange cones are in your way that you have to navigate around. And it's like, I have to do all this to make sure that my child is getting a quality education. But you guys are saying, we're not going to help you provide a good education. We're just going to hope you find it.
To find out more about this topic and our guests, Christina Kuhn and Patricia Cole, head to viewpointsradio.org. This segment was written by our executive producer, Amira Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Gary Price. Coming up on Viewpoints.
They experience what's called a conditioned arousal. They might be sleepy, they get in bed, and then their brain wakes up. And that's a really common experience that we hear from people with insomnia.
Tired of feeling like a zombie each morning? Why, you may be sabotaging the quality of your sleep. Then,
we are searching for life across the Drake equation, which means that from life's origin to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Since the dawn of civilization, humans have asked, are we really alone? I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.
The United States Border Patrol has exciting and rewarding career opportunities with the nation's largest law enforcement organization.
Border Patrol agents enjoy great pay, outstanding federal benefits, and up to $20,000 in recruitment incentives.
If you are looking for a way to serve something greater than yourself, consider the United States Border Patrol. Learn more online at cbp.gov/careers/USBP.
That's cbp.gov/careers/USBP.